the meeting to order, and we need to run into an executive session.
Now that you got all situated, yes, we do.
Do you want to do it later, or do you want to do it?
Do you have
right
something
now?
else? What I needed is for Horizon, for Hampton Conference Center.
No, it's fine then. That's okay. We can do it for Horizon.
So you want to go into executive session now?
Nope.
No, okay, very good. So then I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes of our January 15th meeting, please.
So moved. Second.
Questions, comments, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carried. Any agenda changes or additions?
I don't think so.
Hey, that's amazing. Morning. Okay, well, this rate will be done in about 15 minutes.
Okay, wait 15 more for.
Okay, the financial report, Dory.
I'm gonna refer to Mike.
Okay, Mike.
Changeover of all the reports.
Okay.
Okay, very quickly, we have our new accounting system online. All the reports in your packet are from the new system. Balance sheet will list all of the balances of all the various accounts that we have, the investment accounts as well as the operating accounts. There may be some slight changes to this going forward once the 2019 audit is completed. There will be some entries that modify this to some degree, and we're waiting for that to happen. My understanding is we didn't give the balance sheets in the past, so that's something new that I think is pretty powerful. On the P&L, we're showing a loss of about $18,000. Major contributing factors to that, the capital improvement for our new offices was about $7,000. We did some repairs and maintenance. We also did some insurance prepays up front and some fire assessment taxes, which explains why the balances, why the net income is negative. Are there any questions about either one of those? Moving on to the this report, the one that's on legal stationery. This is from Loan Assistant. It will list all of the loans that are outstanding by all three agencies. And it's slightly different from the one in the past. The first page is basically all the loans that are managed by the IDA. I want to bring your attention to a couple of them. Climbing Vines has made their final payment. So if you notice on the right side, it's the fourth one down. They've got an outstanding balance of $0. They will be disappearing from the report as of next month. The outstanding balance on each of these loans will match the outstanding balance on the detail balance sheet, both in this report as well as going forward. On the second page, the top section lists those loans that are managed under Horizon. And you can see the two different loans, the emergency loan and the entrepreneur loan. A couple of points here is that looking at the entrepreneur loan, we have loaned to date funded amount of about $978,000, of which $689,000 is still outstanding. And then likewise, the bottom one is YCCRC loan fund, and I want to point out the Yates Cultural and Recreational loan. They also have paid off that loan in full, and it will be removed from the report as of next month. Are there any questions?
So all the emergency loans have matured now, because that was a 5-year deal, right?
That's correct, yeah.
So
That's correct.
I know one of them is already in default, but the rest of them,
The ARC loan should be paid off here in another month. And then
Just
it's
Penny
just the
Diner.
Penny and Diner.
and Marinus.
Yeah, Marinus, our loan attorney, is correcting the documentation, so there were some errors in the closing documents. He's correcting those prior to us moving forward with the
Okay.
collections attorney. So as soon as those are received back and executed, we'll push
And
forward with.
we are collecting the
collections.
$75 a month from Lemongrass. Should be forever paying it off. Something's better than nothing, so.
And one more comment on this report. Doreen did a great job in the past preparing a whole series of reports that this replaces. This is done probably 95% automatically, push of a button. There's just very few minor changes, so the efficiencies gained as we went to this system is pretty extensive.
Yeah, I think there's pretty much anything you want is right here. You can figure it out rather
Yeah.
than creating a special report.
Yeah. This particular report, when you do an export from the tool, literally has, I think, about 150 columns. So the amount of data that's available is very wide. And as we go forward, if there are other elements that the board wants to see on this report, we could certainly provide it.
Is it possible, this is kind of a small matter, but to bold the different or make it larger, which if it's FLEDC,
Yep.
Horizon?
Yep, absolutely.
I see, so it just stands out a little bit more.
It's interesting because I highlighted that myself on my copy by hand.
Because it's the 3 different
Yeah.
companies. This is great.
Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the
So-
report.
So,
So,
Thank you. All in favor?
I,
Opposed? And carried. Okay. So, management reviews. Rolling yours at the top of that list.
I don't have any updates.
Okay. Michael?
Me first?
You first.
Who wants to go first?
So the wing walk was a massive success. That was February 8th. Sold 300 tickets, as I've said before. But what surprised me the most is 95% of those people actually showed up, and that was the day after probably our worst snowstorm. Just about everybody that was up at Brock's Bowl to help get people registered, and within the first 45 minutes to an hour, we had just about everybody show up. Didn't overwhelm them. They were able to get the chicken wings out. Everyone had a drink there and then moved on to their next location. And as soon as everyone that registered there, moved on, the Cuca Taxi shuttle came up and unloaded another wave of people to come in. Feedback was positive. What really impressed me is of those 285 people that showed up to the event, 90% of them actually casted a vote. I would have been ecstatic with 50%. 259 votes were cast, and Timmy G's ended up the winner. We had a nice little gathering there the Thursday following the event. Gave them some recognition, recognized our sponsors as well, and just overall went really well. Positive feedback all around. A lot of people saying and thanking us for hosting an event for the local community and not focusing on summer guests and the affordability of it all. Still plan to host a meeting with the restaurant owners to get more feedback from them, but from initial conversations, they were all pleased with how it went as well. Nice couple articles in both the local papers. So recognition was great. Also held another Discover Yates trip over the past month. The students from Penn Yan went to both Cochin Equipment and Silgan Plastics. Both were very impressive tours. They both did well. Provided a kind of an informational kind of presentation overview of what they do, how the companies run, positions available, and then toured the facility. Great conversations were had with the two students afterwards. Some of them mentioning that they were looking forward to going into exploring welding or other trades to potentially find positions for, if not one of those two manufacturers, other manufacturers in the area. So it's going positive. I'm going to be reaching out to Dundee as well to get their students involved in some of the next trips or separate trips, but for Dundee as well. I met last week with a architect from Hunt Engineering. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the Horizon meeting. Came down to learn more about the Building Improvement Fund and the services we need to move forward with the, that program. Walked around downtown Penn with him for about an hour to hour and a half, and he was very impressed with what we have going on in downtown. Praised us for our DRI application, how we kind of applied a wide range of activities for the parks to the upper floor apartments to the commercial spaces, and was very positive about everything that we had going on. So that was encouraging, and like to see that it's somebody we certainly want to work with for projects going forward. They have a lot of experience with home leasing, so there's some potential there for future projects and doing both new housing developments as well as redevelopment of older buildings. Other than that, if there's any questions on the rest of it.
And question or comment, when you're taking the students to visit these various businesses, and you can see opportunities, and you mentioned welders, is there some way that they learn about what a welder might get paid? And I ask this question because the college, and so you spend $120,000, I'm making up numbers obviously, to go to college, to get a degree, and you might make $50,000 a year. If you're a welder, you might make $80,000 a year, and it's 6 weeks training. Just wonder if that's put out in front of the people, not to discourage anybody from going one way or another, but just put it out in front of them.
Yeah, make sure they understand what the
Right.
costs and what the return can be there. Both Silgan and Coach did talk a little bit about wages in their presentations prior to the tours. And I know that was a big focus of everyone that was involved in the career day that we did in October. And being very forward about what the costs are, what your income's gonna be, additional benefits at the company to start changing the conversation, or at least be more informative of what's out there. Certainly there's more we can do to get it out there. Thinking on ways to do that is
I think so
will be
also
beneficial.
with the parents, because people just don't realize. I ask this question because I see it in our business where we've got young people that are out of college and they're over working for $12, $13 an hour because they can't find a job someplace else, or in the courses that they've taken. Just when we're struggling to find
Parent
labor around
education,
here.
the parent education is something we've sort of batted around a little bit through the either career days or these explorations. I know early on in Discovery Yates, there were a couple of parents that were sort of tagging along a little bit, which was fine, but they're trying to learn a little bit themselves. So we haven't done it yet, but there's definitely an opportunity, I think, there to try to educate the parents as much as well. That's the scheduling of it has been the challenge to date that we haven't, I don't know that we've really tried to solve yet, but we know it exists. Because Discovery Yates used to go after school, and then they've switched to which then the parents a lot of times could attend, but then transportation for the kids became an issue, so it switched back more to during the day, which
I
then
thought
made
attendance was better during the day as well.
so student attendance went up, the parent attendance obviously went away, but so.
I'd love to help on those initiatives if there's one in the spring, or if we're gonna do more with that, because I see a huge gap. My daughter just graduated from high school, so I can, you're living it now. I just, that bill is coming in the mail shortly, so, but I would love to help because,
Okay.
you know, my daughter's like looking at the college tuition going, Mom, you know, if I'm a nurse, how do I pay this back, right? You know,
This is
and-
the point that I'm
yeah,
trying.
it's great perspective to share.
Right, I mean, if you still wanna do it, that's fine, but if you're
Right.
going into this thinking that I'm gonna pay my student loans back in 3 or 4 years.
Or to help kids find alternative, you know, funding, loans, or, you know, work study or scholarships and help them apply for those. You know, I think we have a high need and a gap in support from the school system because there's just not enough people to do the work. So I would love to help with that because I think there's a lot of talented kids who don't really know where to go and what next steps to take.
Perfect.
I mean, that's
We
great.
also see that's kind of sad and read it, you talk at the colleges, you get people who get through maybe 2-3 years and they run out of money. And that's it. But those loans don't go away.
Right.
So I mean, it's just, if there's something we can do to help the young people and maybe their parents, and all goal in my mind is to keep them here.
Absolutely.
We need to keep them here. So,
Yeah. Or get them to come back if they go
Yes.
somewhere else, right? So,
okay.
I mean, I'm all about any education is great for everyone, right? I love that. And I don't care what you do with it when you go back, but then balancing out that investment in today's world it's really a huge imbalance.
Well, I didn't mean to get off on a tangent here, but I just, when you mentioned that, with kids running around. 15 minutes, Gene. Okay.
Sorry, Dean, I'll take your spot for talking too much. So make a
That's
pick
what
on
we're,
you.
that's what we're here for. We can go through numbers all the time, but then.
Sir, call him out of order.
Oh, that's true, I probably could. Wouldn't make a difference. All right, Michael.
Mike, can I ask another question?
Yeah,
Or
certainly.
am I not supposed
No,
to?
no.
Do I have to-
Yeah, no,
Everybody.
listen, the
So you
meetings
guys
are
tell me if
very-
I'm out of the rules, but I was just curious if we supported like the wing walk with social media and things like that.
We didn't hear directly. I was sat on a committee that was through, basically a subcommittee of the chamber.
Oh, okay.
And we did set up a Facebook page, and that's what was predominantly all our marketing
Okay.
was through Facebook.
Okay.
We didn't have to promote or.
Yeah, I did hear a lot about it. So
I
I
saw
thought
it
that
on
was
Facebook.
good.
Yeah,
I saw it.
it itself. The chambers,
You gotta make sure you put something in there.
and maybe the Chronicle helped a little too.
The
Great.
thing you send out every morning had a lot of information, and really, pictures and all that. I enjoyed that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
They
Okay.
found a couple of the times, so both with the community dinner, the table, the big community
Yeah.
table event, and now with the wing walk, it's their first tries with this.
Mm-hmm.
And in each case, the good news is that there were overwhelming demand for it, so that you go into it not quite sure right, how much, what the participation will be, and so you start off a little low. So I know from the social media, I think in both cases, or just the overall advertising of the events, there were some like we didn't know about it. We couldn't get our ticket. By the time we heard about it, tickets were gone, and that's a good thing.
It is a good thing, yeah.
That's a
It
good
is a
thing.
good
Build
thing.
a hype for future
Yeah,
events, so-
absolutely, yeah. But it also,
Could happen.
I think, demonstrates the demand
Yes.
that we have for those. People want that community,
Absolutely.
want to get together, and even outside of the, you know, the visitors, the tourists, you know, the seasonal people, but that core community, I think we could keep doing that.
Mhm. Yeah, we're thinking of our next event now, so not sure exactly what it's gonna be yet. But
I'm in.
we're rolling with the momentum we got from the first two, so, and then obviously continuing.
That's great.
both those
Yeah,
events
I
for-
was super
for
excited
next
to
year.
see those and then hear that they were really well attended.
Okay, moving on. Briefly on ABO compliance, in the management report, there's an
Exciting world.
Yeah, you can all go to sleep now. There are 3 tables that list a whole bunch of different policies and procedures. And part of my charter is to look at ABO compliance and what we need to do to make sure we're okay. And we've also expanded that to a complete review of all of the policies because many of these are dated and we need to go through an update process.
Mike, I'm sorry.
I can print another
ABO?
one.
Authority Budget Office, it's a
should
part of
get
the
one.
state government, and it's a big part of it is we report into the ABO.
Okay, thank you.
You'll get to do some online training on that, doesn't
Yeah.
she?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Can't
I need
wait.
to email her the information.
So without getting into any details at this point in time, I wanted to put this in front of you to let you know that there are, right now the number is 53 separate deliverables for documentation for this program, many of which are mandated, many of which are internally, decisions were made internally that we want to have them. Four that we're going to prioritize out of the chute is we're redoing the bylaws. We have a draft right now that's going to be going between Steve and I on some of the changes. They're relatively minor, but that still will be updated. But then the other three are the bottom three on the first table, charters for the various subcommittees. We need to develop those. And luckily, the ABO has model charters that we're utilizing as the baseline for that. The big item here is I'd like to get together briefly with the people here that are on the governance committee after this meeting for a short discussion on how best to go through this process, because there's some different approaches that we can take. OSC audit response. We handed out this document to everybody. It is fundamentally identical to one that was handed out at the last meeting, but we did some wordsmithing. We changed the format to be consistent again with OSC guidelines in this case. And we're going to be asking for approval from the board. This needs to be submitted back to the OSC no later than about 3 to 4 weeks from now.
Okay. That's on our agenda.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, great.
We'll
We'll get to that. On the facility side, we have 2 projects that we'd like approval for. One is very interesting. It's in the the Estabrook shop, which is at the far end of this building. They've been complaining about their lighting in there. It's old, it's dated, it's T12 fluorescent, which is being obsoleted right now. And make a long story short, there is a rebate program out there that if we were to go in that direction, we have an outlay up front of between $7,000 and $8,000, but there's a $4,800 rebate once the project is done. And Estabrook has agreed to pay for 50% of the remaining funds. So the end result, the end cost to us from a fixtures point of view is about $1,200. And then we feel we need another 1,000 or so in miscellaneous materials, wiring, and everything else. So we're going to be asking for upfront approval to not exceed $8,000, with an understanding that the end cost is going to be no greater than $2,500.
A motion on that?
We'd love a motion on that.
So moved.
Well, it's on our
Is
there discussion?
It's on
Okay.
it's on the agenda.
Okay.
It's on the agenda under new business.
Okay.
All right.
The other project, which is also on the agenda, is for Coach. It's in the Canandaigua building in the back here. They had a heater that's failed. It's been fixed a few times. It's ancient. And we have a quote for $2,500, $2,515 to replace that. We'd like to go forward on that as well. That's it.
Anything else for Michael? Any questions? Okay, we'll move on to Steve.
Let's see here. I'll just reiterate what I think is the really good news of the new owners of what we call the Dundee Foods building, Stott and Davis. I've already mentioned to Gene earlier, I think they've owned it for a week and a half, 2 weeks, and I've had more communications with them in that span than I probably had combined with the previous 2 owners. So it's nice to see someone has it and wants to do some investments into it. It's, the ideal scenario would have been someone that bought it and was going to have 1 million employees within it. Absent of that, having someone that has some experience in utilizing these buildings is the next best thing. They do have a building, they're based in Auburn, and they have I believe it is their Auburn warehouse. I don't know if they have multiples in Auburn. They've sort of utilized as an incubator. They worked with the local economic development group there, and it's morphed more into sort of a multi-tenant incubator type deal. So he saw Dundee's, the way it's kind of chopped up inside, and said it lends itself well to that. We don't really have another facility. When we get an inquiry for smaller space that we can utilize, this one we can. So, and I know he's already been out on the road talking to businesses, trying to get people into it. So it's, from that part, very exciting to see an actual owner that's interested in seeing good things happen to that building. Locally, Conference Center has broken ground. And just a couple other quick things. I was on the Keuka College Community Advisory Board. They just have announced they have an esports management program, which is basically a gaming management. And it was kind of interesting to hear the breakdown of what that consists of. And I asked all the naive questions. I'm like, that's great. What the heck is it? what courses are involved in esports management? And it's no different than sports management or business management. There's marketing aspects to it. There's organizational management to it. So they were. I saw it in an email today. They have a major in it now. So Keuka College has a major in esports management. They might be. I think it's the first in New York State. There's only about 6 in the country, I think, or something like that that's doing it. So you give Keuka some credit for that. They have 70 plus athletes on an esports team. So it's and they have some real. They have like one computer lab that houses these teams, and so they're fighting for times within the computers. And so I made a couple suggestions, like maybe reach out to the local schools, both Penn Yan and Dundee, and just see if you can whip in, see if they have computer labs. Is there a way you can utilize the athletic fields and not utilize their labs too? So it's kind of interesting just to see that going on. And then just for what I think will be an interesting discussion, it's not happening until April. I've been asked to present at the LULA group, which is Land Use Leadership Alliance. And the format really is going to be the impact. I think they're looking more from a tourism aspect and a rentals of the lakes, and what is that negatively or positively impacting, or both, sort of local life, with more and more cottages going to a rental aspect, more cottages getting bought, torn down, and rebuilt. So I hadn't given it too much thought, but it was just kind of interesting to see. I think the concept of most, and I'm presuming this because they haven't said this, it's just in some discussions with them, you think it's tending a little bit more towards the negative. We got to get a handle on this. There's people, coming in and partying all week long, and next to someone who's been a resident there. The interesting part that I think I'm probably gonna take is the look and talk to Mike about this, and Janice is a great, actually a bunch of your examples of this, how the lake is actually attracted from a visitor standpoint, a rental standpoint, leading into permanent residency for these folks. I actually was just talking to another gentleman who's interested in investing in downtown. Saying he just come here on vacation, decided they really like to stay here, so they've now moved here, having a house be built right now that they're going to live here permanently and want to invest further in the area. So just kind of interesting aspect on it. I'm curious to hear the
Steve,
other impacts of it.
who are the members of Lula? What's the?
I have no idea. A lot of the people on the watershed, the local watershed, people are on planning board members, zoning board, not zoning board, planning board, town board members.
Like Steve Butchko from Wayne. I don't think he's the supervisor anymore.
No.
He was one of the big guys.
He was the one who reached out to do this, but
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like
He's in a little trouble right
local, like, I guess.
people, I don't get different people who have either an interest in, or either direct or indirect interest in,
Like is
the use of
Keuka
the
Lake
land.
Association
Yes, there'd
members
be some-
and
There have been several series, classes where they invited planning board members throughout the towns around the lakes, and they
Okay.
came in. I remember I did
Okay.
I think it was the first one. I think you
Yep.
did. It was in 2008, maybe. It was out of Keuka. It was a partnership with Pace University and Cornell University and their regional planning and design department, and they did this. It was a multiple meeting series, and then they replicated it a couple times. And then now there's this ongoing work group that's kind of stayed out of some of those
I see.
trainings. It was meant as a training for local land use decisions.
so to kind of share best practices and
I
align
think they've
around.
done like steep slope policies. I think all the towns around Cuba now have,
Okay.
steep slope ordinances, and I think a lot of that came out of this.
So,
Okay. Thank
big
you.
push lately for view shed conservation,
Okay.
preserving vistas.
And it's still sponsored by Pace and Cornell together, so. I think that's all I had, unless there's questions, or more questions.
Okay, thank you all of you gentlemen. So we will move into our old business, and that is the OSC audit response. We've seen one last month and the updated one this month. So unless there's any questions on that, I would entertain a motion
Just
to.
a real quick update maybe for
Okay.
Janice. We had a 4.5 month long audit from the state controller's office. It came back with lots of positive verbal comments from the auditors. They didn't necessarily make their way into their written response to us, but by law, basically, we have, I think it was 90 days, 60 days, something like that, from the time they give us the formal findings to give them our, basically our corrective action plan. So we've given out some rough drafts of it, and this is the proposed final draft that we've gone over that really sort of, Mike and Doreen have spearheaded getting for the format and the answers together for it, or responses to it.
Great.
So with that, may I have a motion, may we have a motion to approve this to be sent to OSC?
I make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And carried. It was an experience, but I think a positive one.
For who?
Well, I'd say it was.
I'm kidding.
It was for
I'm
you
kidding.
and the team here, because
Yeah.
when you get a final report and it takes all, the personal one took, I think, 7 minutes. When they sat down and talked with myself and Steve, and the other 25 or 30 minutes was how wonderful things were here.
Yeah.
It really was, so they'd actually made the report back to the folks in Albany, how things were there, so it's a compliment to us, or not to us, to you.
Yeah, I think the written audit findings were 4 or 5 pages.
Right.
And the rest of it, here's how we conducted everything, and that's what was more just the form aspect of the response was 8 or 9 pages. So it was, there was more description around what, how they go about doing an audit than what they actually were able to find that could use some corrections, I guess. So it's good, really good.
Okay. So now we'll move into new business, and we've talked a little bit about the Esterbrook shop lighting, but we would need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Seconded.
Other questions or comments? I think Mike had told us about that, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Keep our friends up in the Canandaigua place warm, so I have a motion to put a new heater in there, please.
So
Seconded.
Okay. Other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And carried. Cuca lease, we did not talk about that, so.
You have, aspect of time, unless there's questions, Doreen emailed them out late last night, but you also have just a summary of them here. We can go through each of them, I'm happy to do so, or you can just kind of go down the list and
Well, we just run down the list unless.
if there's questions, you
if
can
there's
ask.
Questions, we just hit the highlights, square footage, dollars, right?
Okay. So, Cuca College, this is basically for their Startup New York program, which we don't even really hear much about startup anymore, even, I think, anywhere in the region, but they need to maintain an office here, so 1 year renewal, so it's a $200 lease, $15 utility for a year. It's a 390 square foot office.
Okay. Have a motion to
So moved.
consider that. Second.
Seconded.
Other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Okay, now we're at the KG Graphics lease.
Also a 1-year renewal for $550 a month. They pay their own utilities there. It's half of the Skinny Atlas building, which is roughly 860 square feet that they utilize.
Okay. Motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have to speak up louder so our friends can hear us. Okay. Wintech. Wintech Corporation.
Actually, Wintech is downsizing, but we're keeping them here, which is good, into what was my old office for 1 year to $185 a month, which does include their utilities except their internet and phone, and it's a 180 square foot office.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
It could be fun if you want to come around and watch Bill and Babs, if you know them,
Yeah.
have their discussions as they try to get all their stuff out of there. It'll be,
Well, at least they have curtains so they can hide themselves. Not that the other person did that.
Did your desk stay there? Is the desk the same?
no.
See how long it takes him to put his feet up on it.
Yeah.
Okay. FLX glassware lease.
1,000 square feet over in the Seneca building, 1-year renewal, $333.33 a month, $100 utility.
A motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second it.
Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And the hotbed lacrosse lease.
The other back portion of the Seneca building, 1,500 square feet, $530 a month, 1-year renewal. Basically just storage for him, so there's no utility charge.
Okay.
So moved.
Second it.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And carried. If I'm following the agenda correctly, we're pretty close to the end.
Mhm.
Just a reminder that, and we'll get lots of them, I'm sure, our annual meeting presentation next at Esperanza, correct?
Correct?
Correct.
3 to 5?
2:45. I'd like to start it at 3. If we tell people at 3,
Okay.
they get there at 3, and we don't get
All right.
started till a little later, so we don't even have, invites should hopefully go out today for that. We'll give people plenty of notice for it.
All right. If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So second it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, carried. Now, if we move into our next meeting. This is,
Should be at the bottom of the
well,
stack.
I've moved, yeah, it should be, but I've moved things around here that much. I tell you, it takes 2 people to keep me organized. Thank you.
Got a new seat next meeting.
Yeah. Maybe I'll like leave $10 on the table or something. Okay, so we'll call the meeting, Finger Lakes Horizon Park Economic Development Portion Development Corporation to order. Approval of the minutes of January 15 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Oh, we have one person's in favor. Okay, thanks. Carried and away we go. Doug, do you have this problem too, me? Okay.
Not as much as I did last year.
All right, good. You get a little response every now and then. Okay, under Finance Committee,
There were some checks on the check detail at the end, we just need to approve paying those.
we have a motion to pay.
So moved.
Motion to read it, second.
Second.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Much better. Opposed? Carried. Okay, new business.
We actually do have an addition
Oh,
for
oh,
old business.
sorry.
Cuca Lake Hotel, Community Development Block Grant Loan Terms.
You wanted executive session, though, correct?
Yeah.
So we need to go into executive session
What's that?
We need to go into executive, you want to do that?
Yes, please.
All right, so I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Discuss the financials
Right,
of their corporation.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Just as a matter of clarification, for me, we had the tapes on when we went into executive session. Do we need to have that motion to come out of the executive session recorded?
I don't think so.
Okay, fine. Don't want to have somebody call me 4 years from now saying, you messed that meeting up. Okay, so with that, we have a motion
Just
to,
guess.
why don't you give us the motion you'd like to see?
Yep, so we're seeking a motion to approve loan terms for the Cuca Lake Hotel LLC, or Hampton Inn Conference Center. They have a community development block grant, $300,000, $150 of which is a traditional loan, $150 deferred loan. Deferred loan to be forgiven when the job creation requirements are met. The terms we are seeking approval for are 3.8%, which is 80% of the current prime, as well as a 10-year term. Terms would be consistent for both the traditional loan and the deferred loan.
Okay. Somebody like to move that?
I'll make the motion.
Seconded.
Discussion, questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything else?
New business, we have the RFP for the DRI Building Improvement Fund. It's sent last night, and if anybody doesn't have a copy, I have more here. An overview of the request for proposal that we sent, as well as a comparison of the 3 proposals we received on the back. It really came down to Hunt. So we received from Hunt Engineers and Preservation Studios, Insight Architecture, and Sheen and Associates. Sheen and Associates was lacking some of the required scope of services that we needed, and also included some errors in there. They didn't really list a price for their cost for the building improvement side of it, and listed building improvement fund twice instead of some of the other, instead of 126 Main Street, which is one of the individual projects that we're administering.
So in addition to the building improvement fund, the state actually asked us to also administer a couple of the housing projects, which is the Water Street Townhome project and the upper floor development of, I always forget the address.
126 Main Street.
126 Main Street, Village Pharmacy. So, because they generally don't give their funding, their grant funding directly to a private developer. So they asked us to administer that for them. So we sent out this sort of lump sum general consulting bid.
Yeah, and for those 2 projects, there are soft cost funds for soft costs built into their award. Both have already worked with architects and engineers in the past, so we're not sure or certain if they will need the services that we put within the RFP. We put them in there, so if they do need them, the firm is able to do it. So Insight listed in their proposal to bill hourly. So once we kind of figure out what the need is for those 2 individual projects, then we can determine what the cost there. But they did list that it would not exceed what those allocated soft cost funds were: $10,000 for 126 Main Street and $50,000 for Water Street Townhomes. Comparing the 2 proposals, both Hunt and Insight meet the scope of services. They referenced and acknowledged and showed projects that they've worked on in the past. So they're both very similar. Insight is familiar with Penny Inn. They worked a part of the DRI project as well as on our New York Main Street grant. And Hunt sent an architect down, as I mentioned in my management report. I met with him for an hour and a half or so wanted to better understand our scope of services and learn the Penny Inn, walk through some of the properties that will be potential building improvement fund sites, as well as the Water Street Townhomes location and the upper floor of 126 Main Street. They're again very, very close. We are recommending Insight Architecture to move forward with. based on their familiarity with Penny and having more experience with both the DRI and New York Main Street projects. Throughout this process, the state has mentioned and told us numerous times that the Building Improvement Fund is modeled almost identical to the New York Main Street grant that we just wrapped up. So having Insight, working with them on that project has carried a lot of weight in that recommendation. Their costs are pretty much similar, slightly less for Hunt, but they also did not include mileage reimbursement within their proposal, so that very well can make up that small difference in price there.
Well, and we don't know what the final tally will be. Insight gave us a not to exceed amount on the two individual projects, Water Street and 126 Main, so it could come in less. My guess is it won't, but it might come in less.
So, with that recommendation, would someone like to make a motion to accept the proposal from Insight?
So moved. Second.
Other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And I think
That's it.
something else. You gentlemen have anything you want to share with us?
I would thank Steve for contacting Bill Middlebrook immediately after the fire. I appreciate it.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
We don't need the third one?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.